Good evening, everyone. Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So it's Sunday, June 21st, 2020. So the title of the live stream is Avoid the Financial Markets and Avoid borrowing as well as much as possible. Yeah, avoid being in the system. Yeah, I just think the more and more I read about things or I listen to people, especially people like Catherine Austin Fitts and others of that ilk, I tend to think that, well, I thought about it over 2, 3 months ago. I kept telling my viewers that I thought this health crisis was an organized or engineered crisis. So I think something is definitely is up. They've pumped the markets, not only the stock market, but the bond markets back up with trillions of dollars of central bank liquidity. And I think they could pull the plug. There's a great interview some of you probably listened to, Catherine Austin Fitts and Greg Hunter over the weekend. She talks about debt entrapment. And that's even before I listened to that interview, I was thinking about doing that kind of subject, never a borrower or lender be. So a lot of people here already, 120 people. Hello, everyone. Getting more and more people. It's difficult to see all of you, but I'll try. Padenda Johnson. Yeah, Billy is here today. Hi, Padenda. JM. Hi, JM. Jillian. Hi, Jillian. Hi, Pablo. Billy is doing well. His birthday is 6th of July. He's going to be 12, so he's an old boy. Yeah, Abba Sentry says this is the last leg down. The other thing I noticed, I haven't talked too much about it, but it just came out on Thursday, the latest data of the Fed's balance sheet. They actually shrunk their balance sheet in the latest week that was reported. So what are they up to? I mean, people are expecting them to keep inflating the balance sheet. Well, we'll have to see. But you've noticed, though, probably that the stock market seems to be having a tough time going back up. I think they shrunk it by 75 billion. Damien Wright from Australia. Hi, Damien. Peter Richard. CC is here. Abacentry, I've got 2 ounces of gold. Bought at 1,500. That's not a bad price. That's what it's around right now. Gold had a very good week in pounds. We went back up above 1,400. I think we closed at 1,410. It had a very good week as well, I would say, in dollars. We closed at 1,743 on Friday. We're right near 1,750, seems to be a big resistance. And then there's a spike from earlier this year at 1,765. I think precious metals are looking good. Yeah, Simon Bevan, be your own central bank. That's right. Yeah, stick to, I say what you know. I think having your own property, not only as an investment, but it's your safe haven, is where you live. It's your home. I think that's important. Try to get out of debt as much as possible. Don't, how can I say, buy into all the help from governments. I've been reading a lot of stuff this weekend about the property market in the UK, not only commercial, but the residential. And I think things could get quite worse. Right now, it's like they've suspended a lot of stuff, deferring mortgages and interest payments and capital repayments is not forgiving debt. So, and I think that's a big problem with the private or residential real estate, that these programs are going to end and people are going to realize they might be out of a job and now they have to pay back 3 or 4 or 6 months worth of mortgage, and they're going to pile the interest as well on the interest that you didn't pay. So they're not going to be very forgiving. And the same thing for commercial property. It's changing a lot, and it's one of the reasons probably why the UK is looking to, the government is looking to shorten the social distancing rule, which is, of course, is, in my opinion, a stupid rule, from 2 meters to 1 meter, or 6 feet to 3 feet. They're thinking of announcing the halving of that distance on Tuesday. Why is that important date? Well, because the 24th of June is like a really important date for shops, for tenants that rent commercial property. Usually they're on 3-month payments. They pay 3 months ahead. And apparently I was reading this, and I actually remember from having my shop in Bromley, you have to pay 3 months in advance. And it could be a problem because these businesses have been closed for months, and they don't know what's going to happen. They've been told there's a second wave. So that could be a huge problem as well for commercial properties, for the tenants and the landlords. I think it's a huge problem. The other thing is all the furlough schemes is giving an idea, a false, how can I say, image, or false picture of the labor market. When these furlough schemes end in October, I think a lot of things are going to get a lot worse. All right, I've spoken quite a bit, so now I'll take some questions, more questions, and look at your comments. Quite busy tonight, 262 already, not bad. SAC Media, yeah, totally agrees with property. When is the hyperinflation coming in the Eurozone? Eki Rashe asks, well, I think you need to keep an eye on the price of gold. In euros, it's just below 1,600. I did a video yesterday. I covered a lot of I did an update of all the gold prices in different currencies. That's what's going to be pointing to hyperinflation. The higher gold goes versus all the currencies. And I think we're about to go higher. I know I got my forecast of 2,000 gold in the beginning of June was wrong. It didn't work out. The technical analysis, as I said, is not perfect. There is a chance sometimes it doesn't work, but I've been looking at some studies about the seasonality of the gold market, and usually there's a strong seasonal market for gold, or the price goes up. Usually July, August, September is a good time for gold. So I think, yeah, that will point to hyperinflation. I think the higher the gold price goes, and eventually that will translate into the euro, the pound, the dollar, all the fiat currencies buying a lot less of everything that's important. I'm not talking about things that we don't need, like Tesla cars or iPads or things like that. Mad Max, hi Mad Max, nice to see you. Pad says, how's the lockdown in London going? Restrictive? Well, they've lifted a lot of the restrictions, but you go into shops that you can go into at the moment, and there's loads of stickers. Yeah, the non-essential shops haven't opened yet. I think they're gonna, well, they have opened, I guess, June 15th. But I think there's still a lot of things that are not back to normal. For example, I haven't had a haircut in a while. Not that I have that much hair. I think that's going to start 4th of July. I'm seeing like stupid measures by pubs, by dentists, So yeah, in the beginning they were saying, oh, if we flatten the curve, everything will go back to normal. But I think they're gonna really use this crisis to try to change things. And they've also now, since the 15th of June or last Monday, you're supposed to wear masks in public transport, in ferries if you go over to France. And at the moment as well, no one's flying for holidays, even though I've seen that Spain is going to open for British tourists. The other thing that they're thinking of doing, well, before I go further, thank you, Smiley, for the super chat. The other thing I was reading today, they're thinking of shortening the distance, the 2 meter distance or 6 foot. But one condition will be that everyone will have to wear a mask. So if you go out and you go into a shop, you're going to have to wear a mask. It's an excuse to make people wear face coverings. And the other thing I read is that restaurants are going to make you, they're thinking, the government is thinking of telling restaurants to get people's phone numbers and address and names, so that if anyone else in that restaurant when you're there gets ill from COVID, then they'll come and probably isolate you. I think that's really bad. So yeah, they are loosening the restrictions, but they're bringing new rules. Thank you, John, for your super chat. You're welcome. You're welcome. Clippers are for Billy. Yeah. Well, Billy got a haircut a few weeks ago. Even the pets have been able to get their haircuts before the humans. Golden Gate, please explain relationship with U.S. banks and the Federal Reserve. If banks are stockholders of the Fed, how can any of the big banks fail, as many say? Well, banks, if you look at the FDIC, especially after the '08 crisis, loads of banks were failing. And even now, there's probably loads of small banks failing. And Lehman, the Fed did allow Lehman to fail. Yeah, it's a bit political as well. Like if you watch the documentaries or the movies about the Lehman crisis, a lot of the New York Fed or New York banks, some of them, they wanted Lehman to fail. Why? Well, because they could take over their businesses. So there's a lot of politics involved. So all the 12 different regional Federal Reserve banks are private institutions, and their major shareholders are the commercial banks within those regions. Yeah. So the Fed does help them out. I mean, Bear Stearns was bailed out indirectly by the Fed. Yeah, they said it was JP Morgan that helped take it over, but JP Morgan was helped by the Fed. But sometimes they do let banks fail, because, or else it will look too blatant and obvious for the general public. Thank you, John H. Where do you see stock market headed? I have put, and you laugh, haha. Actually, I did a video at the end of March, just after the bottom on March 23rd, and I did some cycles analysis going back to 1929 when we had a crash then. And I said that we could recover for the next 13 weeks. And guess what? Last week was the 13th week. And if you look at the weekly chart of the Dow or S&P, it looks like it's starting to keel over. So your puts might work out. The great thing about buying puts, I like buying puts as well. I did well in February and March this year with puts. You know how much you're going to lose. If the market doesn't go your way, you lose the premium. But if volatility really spikes higher, you could do really well in your puts. I even remember when I was trading some options earlier this year, even when the market was going the other way, sometimes the premium would go up. Like if I had a put but the market recovered, but it was very volatile. That premium went up. So it's a great time. We just have to keep an eye. I would tend to think that's not a bad thing to do, to have some puts. I've been debating whether to have some puts, but right now I've got some of my fiat tied up in the mining stocks, GDX and GDXJ, just to let you guys know. And I've got some other mining shares as well. Would you buy property? I would probably wait right now, because what we're witnessing 2024, 2024 is, I think, the engineered demolition of the world economy. So I would probably stay on the sidelines a little bit. Yeah, why? It's like you're playing a game of Monopoly board, and someone's going to come and wreck the game. Or that's not a good analogy. I just think that, yeah, I think you need to be a little more patient, because we're still in a situation where the market hasn't reacted, because the governments have put out so many programs out there to keep the markets from collapsing. Not only because what keeps the property market or real estate from collapsing is the Federal Reserve right now helping the bond market, keeping interest rates low. And I also saw the other day Jeff Berwick from the Dollar Vigilante. He did an interesting video where he showed how incomes in the US have gone up, even though there's so much unemployment. Some people are making more money now than they used to do when they had a job, but that's going to change. So I think you need to be careful. So yeah, I would wait to get involved in property market, but I think it's a good place to be in the long term. It's all you look at the very wealthy people in the world, and I'm not talking about Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. I'm talking about the old families. I mean, Jim Rickards spoke about that. The old European families that have been around for like 500 years. What do they own? A lot of land, property, gold, fine wine, all those kind of things. So yeah, I think real estate is a good thing, but you need to be a little patient at the moment. Jazz Atwell, are you going to join Parlor? I don't know what that is, Jazz. Haven't heard of that. Parlor, is that a new platform? Abba Century says greed is good. um, I think people need to have it. They. I think yeah, individuals always want the best for themselves and their families, but I think greed for the sake of greed is not good. Um, but anyway, Jazz Atwell, a new non-woke Twitter. I haven't. I'll have a look. I haven't heard of it. What will happen to mortgage debt if we have hyperinflation? Don't worry. The bankers will make sure that when they reset the system, that your mortgage from before the collapse will be valued, you know, in their advantage. So don't think that having a mortgage won't matter if there's a hyperinflation. Uh, that's why I'm telling people you should try to not be in debt. Uh, and if you can't get out of debt, don't get into more debt, or try to pay off as much as possible. Shane Sturgis says he's from the Kent coast. Uh, there are so many new builds, especially near the coast. Abacentry, I agree with you about the grabs there. Bonifacio Rios, Jack Ma. Yeah, he's on the board of trustees of the World Economic Forum. So, this is not just the World Economic Forum. They came out a few weeks ago saying that they're going to have their reset, that the COVID crisis has given them a good opportunity. They might succeed. I hope they don't. I don't think people will buy into that kind of world that they want, the fourth industrial revolution, a world of AI, a world of melding humans with machines. I think that's totally a no-no, at least for me. Some people will probably buy into it. How do they shrink the balance sheet? Well, let's say they have a bond that matures next week, right? What that means is that they'll get paid, that bond will go off their books and they'll get the cash. They'll take that cash and basically destroy it. So if they had 2 billion of bonds that matured, the balance sheet will go down by 2 billion. So that's how, or they will sell bonds that they have in their balance sheet. That's how they shrink the balance sheet, by not rolling over maturing debt that they own, or by selling debt that they own. That's how they shrink the balance sheet, their assets in the balance sheet. Lord Humongas says 1 ounce of gold might buy your next place. That's the thing, when you have a hyperinflation, there is no price for precious metals, but you can barter it for something. If someone is really desperate and needs the liquidity, they might part with some really valuable assets. Jung Si, Jung or Jung Si says, people finally started to have confidence the Fed stocks will dive. Yeah, it's true. I mean, Catherine Austin Fitts said that she thinks is a debt entrapment. So what's the best way to entrap people? Well, it's probably with higher rates, because if the Fed balance sheet keeps shrinking, you could see interest rates rise. And some of you probably watched Charles Nenner on Greg Hunter, I think about a week ago. He sees interest rates rising. He doesn't know why. But if interest rates rise, like he's saying, that's really bad for people who have debt, especially those who don't have a job or have taken on more debt. Those people who have been on deferment deals for their mortgages. Can you imagine if rates start going up, all the government programs expire, and they don't have a job? Wow, house prices will collapse. People will have to, there's going to be negative equity again. So it doesn't look good. Am I being negative? No, I'm just trying to tell you what I think could happen. There's a good possibility. Debbie Hewson, how bad do you think it will get? I think it's pretty bad already, Debbie. The only reason it doesn't feel as bad is because right now we've got governments and treasuries supporting a lot of people, but they can't do it forever, because even these people, even the politicians, the central bankers, know that they can't keep giving people money for nothing for too long, because it's got to be paid eventually. Paul, game, good time to buy property in Venezuela with gold. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with the economy or the property market in Venezuela. While gold is probably very valuable still in Venezuela. Andrew Bennett, as cryptocurrencies need something else to attach value, do you see that they would be value against gold? Yeah, I mean, they would be. Gold is the ultimate measure of value. So if fiats disappear, Cryptos could be valued in gram, versus gold, the versus gold grams or ounces. That's definitely a possibility. Treasury bonds in the savings account. Well, right now, treasuries are not really paying too much interest. And for the small investor, uh, let's say you buy a 3-month treasury bill, you're going to be getting less than 0.3%, something like that. But as you're a retail investor, all the fees that you pay to the broker, you're basically going to get nothing for that. I'd rather stay with precious metals, physical gold and silver. Wirecard, yeah, I saw the story of Wirecard. I'd never heard of the company, but apparently they've got a 2 billion or more dollar hole. So they dropped like 80%. It's a big German payments company, and I think a lot of payment electronic payments companies, like I think the London Transport for London TFL, they work a lot with this company. So yeah, it's quite serious. That I'm not sure if it's going to have more repercussions in the financial system. SG Hunter, how do taxes work when trading metals for real estate with no capital gains? Well, in the UK, sovereigns and Britannias, if you bought 100,000 worth of sovereigns today, for example, in 6 months it was worth 500,000, there would be no capital gains on sovereigns because they're legal tender. And in the UK as well, your primary residence, there is no capital gains either. So yeah, that's how it works here in the UK. In the US, it's different. Capital gains. No, yeah, no capital gains for gold sovereigns. Nor for silver Britannias. It has to be coins of the realm. Has to be a British coin with the Queen's or the monarch's head on it. Hertz, yeah, they're bankrupt. I know they've been trying to issue more shares to raise money, but I think the SEC finally told them, not to. I wouldn't get involved. Yeah, Jim Diggs, I agree with you about the masks. Premium bonds, yeah, they can be interesting. Premium bonds, they are a lottery, like you said. Lily Robbins says George Gammon asks his subs to put question before posting questions. Yeah, I mean, it would help, but also when you've got almost 500 people, it's harder and harder to see all the questions, and they go through here very quickly. Like Lynette Zhang, for example, she has Megan helping her. Megan's reading the questions, and she's just like answering them. Billy hasn't learned how to read yet. By the way, I'll be interviewing Lynette Zhang on the 1st of July for the channel. So that will be interesting. Lynette Zhang. Debbie Husa, America to give up reserve currency. Well, people don't just get, countries don't just give up reserve currencies. I think what's going to happen to the Federal Reserve note, because it's not really a dollar, is it? Is that it's going to still be an important currency, but it will have a lot more competition. Right now, I think 2/3 of world reserves are kept in dollars or Federal Reserve notes. But we could see that drop to like, let's say, 40%. And then you have China with 20%, the euro with another 20, and then other currencies with a few more. I mean, the British pound used to be the major reserve currency before the dollar, and it's still 5% of world reserves. So it's still a minor reserve currency. So yeah, countries don't give up the status; it just changes. It's just what other countries are willing to use. But again, if there is a monetary crisis, if all fiat currencies really lose, people lose confidence in the dollar and all fiat currencies, you could see a gold coming back in the system as well, not as currency, but as a base, as an anchor for the system. That will probably be the last thing the bankers and the politicians want, though. Mara, can I access my superannuation tax free in a couple of months? Should I grab it and buy precious metals? I can. I guess you're in Australia. That's superannuations. Yeah, I mean, I would try to do that. Yeah, personally, if I could. It would be better if it was coming due now, that you could have your money now. But future of the petrodollar, yeah. Typical Brian, thank you for the super chat. Let's get a shout out for gold. So I was looking at my IG.com, which is the trading platform I have, the broker here in London. And right now they're seeing the Dow future down 250. I know the futures only open at 6 p.m. Eastern time, but they have a like a weekend market, so they're seeing the market lower. Yeah, the other thing I would say about avoiding the system, paying down debt, is to not get distracted and divided and conquered by all the news, all the politics. That's the other thing I agree with Catherine Austin Fitz. Uh, yeah, don't get bogged down in all the election stuff. And as she said, try to do things more at a local level. Yeah, there's not much we can do about the rest, I think. And all it does is distract us. Debbie Houston, do you think UBI will be rolled out? Well, we kind of have a bit of UBI right now. It is possible eventually, but I don't think it will work. It's not a good incentive. People will not want to work. Why would, and it's not going to be good for the economies. It's a it's a total fallacy to think that people can live at the expense of the state. Everyone can live at the expense of everyone else. It doesn't work. Hi, Ben. Great. Ben is late, but it's all right. We've got probably another half hour. I usually do an hour. Been here for 33 minutes. Uh, King K Yeet got rid of TV license. Well, since we moved to this house 5 years ago, we haven't had a TV license. I don't watch television anymore. It's a great thing. Aside, yeah, I just said that people need to avoid the divide and conquer, avoid the politics, avoid all the other stuff, the demonstrations. Also, try to avoid uh, the mainstream media like a plague, I would say. I mean, I correspond with someone on Twitter, and sometimes we send each other direct messages, and he sent me stuff from what the BBC's talking about. And I say to this person, is it any wonder I don't follow the BBC? Because it's the British brainwashing corporation. It's probably even worse than Pravda was during the old Soviet Union. Brady Girding. makes a mask from lady's thong, and I get a lot of laughs. Apparently, in Australia, a thong is like a flip flop. uh, Capital gains limit in the UK, I think it's somewhere around 12 to 15,000. I think, yeah, the threshold. You need to check that. But I guess if you're married, you can use your spouse's threshold as well. You can just Google that capital gains tax threshold in the UK, and it will come up. Debbie, that's the other thing about Debbie's. She's all in capitals, her name. So I've noticed more her questions. Getting out of towns. I think a lot of people are doing that, but right now, a lot of people are not in the in the position to do that because it's difficult to move, especially in the UK right now. Um, you can't move around as much. There's a lot of limits, but I'm not going to jump the gun. I think, as I said, someone asked me, "Oh, should I buy real estate right now?" I would wait a little bit until the controlled demolition ends. It's like on 9/11, we saw the planes hitting the two towers, and then if you said, "Oh, we can go back in now," it stopped. But if you'd gone back into the buildings, you know what happened to the buildings, right? So yeah, that's the same. I think the same thing goes for about moving and making a move. I think we still need to see where the dust settles. But in the meantime, if you can, there are things you can do, like getting out of debt, trying to get precious metals, just staying healthy as well. Uh, Not through wearing masks, but keeping fit, exercising, and all the other things. Do you think U.S. will head towards war or revolution? John H. asks. Uh, yeah, but it would be a civil war, I would say, more than or a revolution, maybe. It's very possible. We are in the fourth turning. I don't know if you've heard about the fourth turning. Google fourth turning. Strauss and Howe. They wrote a book back in the 90s, and we're right smack in the fourth turning, which is a very how can I say, unstable, politically, economically, socially, social period. Jimmy Tidwell, thank you for your super chat. Is Bitcoin a trap to test the willingness of the public to use a currency? Some people think it's just a way of the powers that be getting the public to develop the whole infrastructure for them. And that makes sense. I don't know if it's a trap. All the blockchain infrastructure that's being built over the last 10 years uh, without governments or central banks having to do anything. All the people out there in the blockchain world are doing it for them. So some people speculate that that's what they're doing. I'm I'm not privy to I'm not clever enough to know what it is, but it is a possibility. Georgia Guidestones, yeah, Bonifacio, I've seen a lot. I've heard about that years ago. I think Alex Jones was the first one to talk about that. Um, yeah, I hope I hope it doesn't come to into reality because they're forecasting a world of 500 million people. So not a great scenario, I would say. Debbie, who do you think will win civil war or revolution? Well, I think I think it's a little bit like between. It's not like north and south. It's more like the big metropolitan areas versus the more middle America, I would say. Difficult to say who's going to win. Um, Difficult to say if there is, of course, some kind of hopefully middle America, I would say, because that would mean that you'd get more back to more traditional values. I think the metropolitan areas, they're more leftist, of course. Let's hope Lord Humongous says sound money will win. Well, only after this system is thoroughly destroyed and people lose everything, they will maybe start asking questions like we've been asking for years, because we need the public to be behind a call for sound money. If the public doesn't want sound money, we won't have sound money. But if the current system is totally annihilated, they're going to ask questions, and then they're going to probably hopefully start watching my videos so they can learn about it and ask for change. Yeah, fixed rate mortgage is always a good thing to have. The other thing you can do, Lily, is to have maybe a couple of mortgages, one fixed and one, floating. So if rates do go lower, you don't lose out on a cheaper refinancing. Hard asset stacker Mario's a robot. AI Mario, yeah. Timur Khan, what do you think of this year's double sovereign from the Royal Mint? I haven't seen it, Timur, but when I don't really care too much about how pretty the coin looks, as long as it's in good condition and it's a sovereign. A double sovereign, I guess, is twice the weight of a sovereign. I haven't looked at it. Okay. Brady Girding, I have a lot of silver and some gold mining stocks. What would you do in my position with your fiat going forward? I think I would probably, I bought some GDX and GDXJ a few weeks ago. They went up on Friday. I'm in the green right now. Haven't moved that much. I think it's still a good time. So buy maybe some GDXJ or GDX, their gold mining ETFs. I I personally, that's what I did. It's up to you to decide, though. It's not my advice, but yeah, because what happens with the mining company, for example, if gold goes from 1700 to 1900, that's $200. But if you have a mining company that's earning $100 before gold goes up, then they're going to be earning 300. So they're going to do a lot better than the bullion. So it's probably not a bad thing to do. I think the mining sector is still fairly depressed. Anthony King, thinking of selling my paid off house and getting a hold of as much money as possible to invest it in 2 years in the markets hit bottom. What do you think? Uh, the thing is, if you sell your house that you've paid off, where are you going to live? You're going to have to rent. Um, and I'm not sure I'm comfortable with holding cash for 2 years waiting for the stock market to drop. I would probably put in precious metals. Um, and if I were to sell my property, I guess I'm not sure. I don't know if you're married or you have a family. I would definitely buy a smaller one and try to take the cash out. That's what I would do. Who's my favorite on YouTube? Uh, I like Greg Manarino. Right, it changes. The people I watch. Uh, right now, there's a couple of guys here in the UK that I like watching. One is Dr. Vernon Coleman. He's been around for many years, and with the crisis going on right now, he's a breath of fresh air and common sense. So right now, I like Vernon Coleman. He's really good. He's a doctor. He talks about not just the health crisis, but even about other things. I think he's in his 70s. He's written many books, and he used to. Yeah, I like Catherine Austin Fitz as well. Um, who else? I have to look. I don't know. Sometime. Oh, I like right now at the moment. The other guy I like listening to is Richie from Boston, and I like what's his name? High Impact Flicks or Vlogs. I think his name is Brian. Yeah, Old Man in a Chair, Dr. Coleman. And there's another guy, a younger guy in the UK. His name is Carl Vernon. I even recommend him for anyone, not just the people in the UK. Carl Vernon is a guy that I'm listening to lately. He's good. David Icke, yeah, I like David Icke. I've been following his work for almost 20 years. I've been in this alternative or conspiracy theory uh, world. Uh, yeah, probably 2003 or four. I've always been someone who's been contrarian, who's asked questions. So, Bo Pony, he's all right, Bo Pony, but he doesn't do too many videos these days, does he? John Campbell? No, I haven't watched John Campbell. I think Corbett Report. He's very good. I also like yeah, Jeff Berwick, Dollar Vigilante. He's good. I actually interviewed Jeff Berwick about 4 years ago, just when I started my channel out. I've tried to contact him again, but I think he's fairly busy right now. Mike Maloney, I used to listen to him a lot years ago. Haven't listened to him recently. Kaiser Report, yeah, not as much anymore. It just changes. It goes in phases. Yeah, Market Sniper, I subscribe to him. But sometimes, you subscribe to channels and YouTube doesn't notify you of videos. Sometimes you go, oh, I forgot I used to subscribe to that channel, and you go and look in their channel, and they're still making a lot of channel videos. I like Lynette Zhang as well. Jeff Rents, I used to actually listen to him. He used to have his own web page. I used to pay for Jeff Rentz's service. That was like over 15 years ago. I think that's when I started listening to David Icke. I forgot. I was going to say someone else, but I forgot now. John H., take care. Ron Hubbard. No. Oh, I was going to ask you guys. I used to enjoy watching Seething Frog. He hasn't made a video for like over a month. Does anyone know what's happened to him? Seething Frog. Yeah, Brady Girding, Gematria. Yeah, I have looked into Gematria. I do watch Zachary Hubbard sometimes. Zach Hubbard, his Gematria YouTube channel. He's very interesting as well. Gerald Salente, yeah, I do like Gerald Salente. I've known about Gerald Salente for years. My wife listens more to him than I do now. I remember, 10 or 15 years ago, I was listening to Jeff Rents, Gerald Celente, all these people, and my wife used to think I was like mad, but now she watches them more than I do. Amazing Polly, yeah, she's good. Amazing Polly. D Live. I'm Bowman as I'm not on. I'm on D Tube. I tried D Live, but it's just like streaming, isn't it? Like live streams. I tried it once and it didn't work out, so I couldn't be bothered. I already have so many platforms, and I just prefer doing my live streams on YouTube. But I am on D Tube. Best Fiction Channel, the BBC. I haven't watched the BBC in over 5 years. Mario, your thoughts are the on the yield curve control. Yeah, they did that during World War II. That's basically just buying control, manipulating interest rates. That's all it is, all along the curve. You see, right now, what they do is called forward guidance. They keep the very short term interest rates low. And then they say, oh, we're going to keep these rates low for the next 100 years. No, 3 years. And that tends to keep the longer term yields lower. But yield curve control is when they don't have forward guidance and they just keep rates low by controlling. Like when bond prices start going down and rates start going up, the Fed will go in and start buying these bonds to bring rates lower. They'll set like a limit for interest rates. And if the market tests those limits, they come in and intervene. Lily Robin on Lynette and the vaccine. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I agree with Gerald because I don't think it's even a vaccine, as Catherine Austin Fitz has said, right? It's an injection. D, I think the stock market uh, is turning right now. I think we could see another leg down. I'm not sure if it's going to be as sharp as it was in February, March. Some people tend to think that it will just be a very slow move lower, like really bear market for the next 18 months. Some people have really low targets, like Charles Nenner, 5,000 Dow. Uh, s- I've done a bit of analysis. I'm looking for like 9,000, but it's not going to be all at once. It could take until the end of next year, beginning of 2022. Bix Weir, I used to subscribe to Bix, but I don't anymore. Um, yeah, and Snip 4, I enjoy sometimes listening to him, but I don't really agree too much on his views about uh, Q and all the other stuff. I think he's getting too distracted. Oh yeah, devaluation is already here. All the fiat currencies, I speak about that regularly. Some people probably get bored, but it's important to that people know that all the fiat currencies have been sinking since 2001. Um, Gold is average 10% gains uh, on that every year since 2001 in all the major fiat currencies. So that is devaluation. X22 report. Yeah, I subscribe to him, but I hardly listen to him. But I see his videos come up, and it keeps saying, "Oh, this is going to happen." It's always waiting for something to happen, and it never happens. And but he gets hundreds of thousands of views. So I'm not sure if he's that contrarian. What do you think about solar cycles? Um, Solar cycles, yeah, some people seem to think that they could cause, like, the solar minimum could cause a ice age. And the last time that happened, I think that was early 1700s. But I'm not too sure because I've looked into that. And at the same time, I think when they had the last solar minimum, they also had like a big volcanic eruption. So, yeah, I'm not too sure if things are going to get really bad, mini ice age, even though like Cliff High talks about that. Yellowstone will blow, the Yellowstone caldera. Yeah, I've heard of that theory. Or the New Madrid fault line. There was a really bad, one of the worst earthquakes in in U.S. history. It was not on the West Coast. It was the New Madrid Fault, which goes up the Mississippi Valley, I think, Mississippi River Valley, and it was felt in Boston. I think it was in 1812. Are you buying physical? I bought some silver a couple of months ago. The last time I bought, but no, I haven't been buying any physical gold or silver now, just because. Yeah, I need more. Haven't had the spare fiat, but I did. I will probably wait now. I think DTube is going live, the mainnet on July 1st, and I've got quite a bit of DTube tokens. See how much that's going to be worth. I might exchange some of that for fiat, or not fiat, but physical. Mike GB says you are a worse tinfoil hat than me. D asked, when would it be good to jump back into real estate? Yeah, there will be a day, but I don't think it's right now. I think it's when uh, you know people can't sell their houses, when people don't have any money to buy houses, when estate agents are closing down. Yeah, when the market is dead. And so if you have the cash, then that will be a buyer's market. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think it will happen again. Yeah, David Bradley. The I agree with you. It's amazing how people think that it was the health crisis that caused the financial troubles in March. But it wasn't, because we know that the repo crisis started in September last year. The Fed had to cut rates. They were supposed to raise rates last year. They actually ended up cutting rates. They started doing QE again with short-term bonds, which they called not QE, but it was QE. So I think the crisis is even a cover for bailing out the Wall Street and the City of London again. And it's a perfect excuse, because they wouldn't have been able to bail them out again if it wasn't for this crisis. And they're going to try to bring in a lot of other things. They're not going to let this crisis go to waste. Hopefully, they won't succeed. SG Hunter. Well, ETFs all being debt-based system. Yeah, I mean, anything that you buy with a counterparty is a debt-based instrument. So anything that you can hold in your hand, like this mouse or my mug, tangible, that's a tangible good. And that's why, gold and silver, if you can hold this silver coin, there's no counterparty risk. Someone doesn't have to pay you. This is worth something. So anything that you buy that's on a screen, let's say your ETF or your stocks, they're all dependent on the brokerage that you have those instruments with being solvent. You're dependent on the bank that the brokerage keep their money with being solvent, and you're dependent on the security that you hold, the stock or the ETF, on the companies being solvent. So it's a counterparty risk. Someone owes someone something. That's the paper-based system. And I'm not saying people get out, get out. Everything's gonna end. I'm just saying you need to be aware that the system, in my opinion, is a little bit under threat, and that maybe like take some money off the table. Some chips off the the table from the casino table, and cash them into precious metals or tangible goods. I'll take a couple of more questions and then we'll call it a day. We're just over an hour. Yeah, Lord Humongous, the Fed is, they're looking to keep rates low. They're going to try to, the short term rates. Okay. How high can silver go up? Well, I think we could see silver, of course, I think is going to outperform gold. So if gold goes to let's say 3,000 in the next 2 years, I think silver could be at like 100, for example, 30 to 1. So we could see silver at 100. I mean, the last bull market in silver, we got up to almost 50 in 2011. We got up to 50 in 1980. So yeah, we could easily go to 100 in the next 2 years. Biden or Trump, I don't really care. I think either one, there's going to be mayhem. So it doesn't really matter. Okay, everyone. Thank you very much for all your questions, all your super chats, and your presence as well. I wish you all a great rest of the weekend, or a great Monday. Some of you are in Australia. So take care. Bye.